Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Real Estate Council of Alberta, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you and thank you for taking time out of your day to join us for our information session about getting licensed. As you can see from the agenda, we'll be covering a lot of information today. Due to the large number of attendees, the chat feature is disabled and all participant microphones will remain muted for the duration. When we have concluded our presentation, feel free to ask us any general questions by inputting them into the Q&A dialog box. We'll respond to as many questions as we can before wrapping up in about an hour. Today's presentation provides general information about eligibility, education, and licensing requirements and processes. If you have questions about your specific circumstances, we ask that you contact the Registration Services team by phone or email during regular business hours to discuss them. Our contact information will be provided at the end of the presentation. We'll be emailing a copy of this presentation and a recording of the information session to all participants. With that, let's get started. All members of the Registration Services team are RECA brand ambassadors, and we strive to embody RECA's values. We aim to protect, inform, and elevate through all of our day-to-day interactions with applicants and licensees. Our goal is to surpass RECA's service excellence principles as we carry out our important function of vetting applicants and their credentials. RECA licenses and regulates three distinct but related industries within Alberta: real estate, mortgage brokerage, and condominium management. Anyone who provides these services to consumers in Alberta must be licensed through RECA. An often overlooked but important distinction to make is that property management and condominium management are different areas of practice. In fact, property management is a sector within the real estate industry. Condominium management is a separate industry altogether. If you want to be licensed in one of these industries, you've come to the right place. There are three primary phases in the path to getting licensed: the eligibility phase, the education phase, and the licensing phase. Depending on your circumstances, you may have to complete all the steps in the education phase, some of these steps, or none of them. We'll cover all the information you need to know about the three phases as we get further into the presentation. Before you get started in the first phase, eligibility, we recommend that you carefully review the eligibility requirements that are applicable to your circumstances and ensure you can meet them, as your application fee is non-refundable. If you have determined that you meet the eligibility requirements for your particular circumstances, you can get started by creating a MyRECA account and completing the first-time login process. The answers you provide in the first-time login process will guide you to the correct eligibility or labor mobility application. Complete the relevant application and pay the application fee. Once you have completed payment, you can begin uploading your identification documents. Contact any third parties that will need to send documents to us on your behalf. The first phase you must complete in your path to getting licensed is the eligibility phase. You must meet certain eligibility requirements before you can enroll in and complete pre-licensing education or have your non-Alberta license recognized through labor mobility. We'll cover these requirements in depth over the next several slides. It's important to note that there are different requirements depending on your path. Let's dig in. All applicants must meet the first eligibility requirement, which is to provide proof of their identity and ability to work in Canada. RECA is mandated to protect consumers and the integrity of the industries we regulate. Registration specialists employ rigorous identification measures to ensure RECA achieves its mandate. The first identification document that all applicants must provide is a profile photo. Your profile photo should be clear, face-centered, and should not obscure your identity. Keep in mind your profile photo will be visible to RECA staff and your future broker. The second identification document applicants must provide is a copy of source identification, such as a birth certificate, PR card, or proof of Canadian citizenship. This document contains your full legal name and is the name that will appear in your MyRECA account and on your future license. If your source identification document does not contain a first name, your MyRECA account and future license will not include a first name either. You cannot substitute a passport for the source identification document. Passports do not always contain a person's full legal name. Applicants must also provide a copy of one piece of government-issued photo identification, such as one of the documents listed in 1C. If you've had a different legal name previously, you must disclose this in your application and provide proof of this name. The second eligibility requirement that all applicants must meet is proof of English proficiency. Licensees must be able to practice proficiently in Alberta's official language. RECA's minimum English proficiency standard is successful completion of English 30 in high school or equivalent. If you completed your education in Canada, you can request your high school, college, or university to send your transcript directly to RECA. If you didn't graduate high school but received your GED, you can request Alberta Education to send it to us. If you completed your education outside of Canada, you can have your international high school, college, or university transcript assessed by a member of the Alliance of Credential Evaluation Services of Canada and sent directly to RECA. Not all members of ACESC include the language of instruction in their assessments. Your assessment must state that the language of instruction for your course or diploma or degree program was English. If you're unable to provide a Canadian education transcript or an assessment of your international education, you can have your English assessed by one of the institutions listed. There are minimum scores that you must meet for each of these tests, and your test must have been completed within the past 3 years. The third eligibility requirement, proof of completion of a minimum of high school or equivalent, applies to new licensees only. If you hold a license in another Canadian province or an international jurisdiction outside of Canada, this requirement does not apply to you. If you are a new licensee applicant, not a labor mobility applicant, and you completed your education in Canada, you can request your high school, college, or university to send your transcript directly to RECA. If you didn't graduate high school but received your GED, you can request Alberta Education to send it to us. If you completed your education outside of Canada, you can have your international high school, college, or university transcript assessed by a member of the Alliance of Credential Evaluation Services of Canada and sent directly to RECA. The fourth and final eligibility requirement applies to labor mobility applicants only. If you're licensed in another jurisdiction within Canada or hold a license abroad, you must provide proof of licensure in good standing. Your licensing history must be sent by the regulatory body in your originating jurisdiction directly to RECA, and it must include your disciplinary history. Once all required supporting documents have been received for your eligibility or labor mobility application, your application is complete and will be automatically submitted to our processing queue. The Registration Services team processes applications in the order they are received. We receive between 150 and 200 completed eligibility and labor mobility applications every week. This is in addition to the dozens of other applications we receive, along with managing consistently high call and email volumes daily. You can help the Registration Services team review and process incoming applications and respond to calls and emails in a timely manner by viewing the status of your application and required supporting documents in your MyRECA account instead of contacting us for updates. Once your application is complete and has been submitted to our processing queue, you can expect an email with the outcome of our review within the next several business days. You can view our current processing times on the MyRECA login screen or on the My Applications page of your MyRECA account. Much like the eligibility requirements, the education phase differs depending on your circumstances. New licensees that are not licensed in another jurisdiction must complete pre-licensing education and exams before they can apply for their license. Canadian labor mobility applicants are exempt from pre-licensing education and exam requirements. International labor mobility applicants are exempt from pre-licensing education, but must successfully complete the related exams. All pre-licensing education courses must be completed through a recognized course provider. Pre-licensing exams are developed by RECA and administered by our partner, Pearson VUE. Please refer to the step-by-step licensing guide that is applicable to your circumstances. Once you have completed the first two phases, the eligibility phase and the education phase, you're ready to move on to phase 3, licensing. If you haven't already, you'll want to meet with a few brokers to find a brokerage that is a fit for you and get your criminal record check, or CRC, underway. When you have found a brokerage and we have received and processed your CRC, your broker will initiate your licensing application for you through MyRECA. The entire licensing process is completed online, and provided there are no suitability matters that the registrar needs to review, your license will be issued automatically in a few simple steps. As a first-time licensee in Alberta, you must provide a current criminal record check, or CRC, to be eligible for licensing. Your CRC must be less than 6 months old at the time you apply for your license. When you're ready to apply for your license, complete the digital CRC application through your MyRECA account. We'll get the results in a couple of days from our partner, Mintz Global Screening, and we'll email you when we've received and processed it. All first-time licensees must demonstrate that they are of good character and are suitable for licensing. Certain events that have taken place in the past may bring your character into question. Events such as bankruptcies, discipline, criminal charges and convictions, and certain civil judgments must be disclosed at the time of licensing and could impact your ability to get a license. If you're concerned about something in your past that may impact your suitability for licensing, you may request an opinion from the registrar as to your suitability. This is called a suitability review. If you choose to undertake a suitability review, your eligibility application fee includes this. We do not recommend that labor mobility applicants request a suitability review. The intention of a suitability review is to avoid the significant financial and time investment in completing pre-licensing education and exams prior to applying for and being refused a license due to suitability concerns. We've included a comprehensive list of resources to assist you along your journey to getting licensed. We've also included our contact information should you need help along the way. As mentioned, we'll email this presentation to you when we've concluded our Q&A session so that you can refer back to this page or any page in the presentation at any time. That concludes our presentation on getting licensed. Thanks for sticking with us. We'd like to take a moment to find out what kind of applicant you are. Please respond to the poll we've initiated and then post any questions you have in the Q&A dialog box. We'll give you a few minutes to respond to the poll and enter your questions before we begin responding.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us today. My name's Amber, and I'm also have Annie with me today. We're also joined by Rachel, who will be assisting answering some non-live questions. I'll just give you another moment to complete the survey, and then we'll get to all of your questions. And if you do have a question, like they mentioned just earlier, you can please post them in the Q&A section, and we'll answer as many as we can. And just a quick note, we will be emailing everyone a copy of the presentation at the end of the webinar. So I'll just give you all just another minute or two and post your questions, and then we can get started. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Okay, we'll just give everybody another minute. There's still no questions. All right, just one more moment here and we'll get started. All right, first question is, thank you for the presentation. I was wondering, do you have any advice on finding a great broker? So that is a great question. We don't have a list uh, of all brokers of that, but you can go to the MyRECA, or pardon me, the RECA Pro Check, and for depending on which city or area that you are in, you can pull up a list there, and you can reach out to them and ask them, uh, you know, get lots of information from them, check in that. But no, unfortunately, like don't have further information.
All right, the next question is, does transferring my license from another province mean giving it up in that jurisdiction? So no, um, when you apply for labor mobility, you are applying for licensing in Alberta. However, that does not mean you lose your license in your previous province that you're with. The labor mobility path is just another path to being licensed in Alberta, but it is not a replacement license for any other jurisdiction, and you can continue to have licenses in multiple jurisdictions.
All right. Next question is I would like to get more information about the yearly membership. How does it work? So the licensing fees for RECA, our licensing year runs from October 1st of every year to September 30th. There is a fee guide on our website for each industry, so you can refer to the fees here.
All right, so the next question is, can RECA tell me if I'm eligible before I apply? So we cannot do this, so it would be a pre-assessment of your application, and we are not able to pre-assess applications until all documents are completely submitted and the $350 fee for the eligibility or labor mobility application is paid. So if you have questions, you can review the guide that is available on our website, or if it's a specific question, you can give us a call at 403-228-2954, or you can email our inbox at registration@reca.ca. However, we cannot tell you if specific qualifications will get you approved or not.
All right. Next question is how long do I have to complete my eligibility application? Everybody takes a different amount of time depending on how long it takes everyone to acquire their different documentation and that for their applications. And eligibility only expires if our eligibility criteria changes and you're not enrolled in the pre-licensing education. All right. We're just waiting on a few more questions here. All right. Should I pay for my eligibility application before submitting my transcripts to for West for assessment? Yes, you should have paid for your eligibility application before submitting your transcripts to West for assessment because if we receive your West assessment before we have a paid for eligibility application, we wouldn't actually have anywhere to place it. So then it would hold up your application later.
So I have another question here. It says, I don't see the area mentioned to get info about submitting the criminal record check to proceed with the education portion. Can you please guide me to finding it? So to clarify, the criminal record check is not required in order to enroll in education, assuming that a person has already been approved for eligibility or labor mobility. Instead, the criminal record check is required after all education is completed and you are starting the process of looking for a broker and being licensed. So if you would like information on how to submit a criminal record check, there is a guide on our website. Um, so you can click into Resource Hub, and this page has all the guides you need. So you can also look for specific words such as criminal record check, and it'll show you the specific guide you are looking for. So when the time comes that you are prepared to look for a brokerage and you finished all your education, you can take a look at this guide to see how to apply for a criminal record check.
All right, thanks, Annie. Okay, how can I check the status of my application? Great question. So to check the status of your application, you'd actually go to your MyRECA account. And when you log into your MyRECA account, if you go to my applications page, you can click on your eligibility application, and that's where you can view the status of your application. So if something is submitted, it'll show. If something is still waiting for details, then that means that we have not received it yet. So that's where you can go.
All right, I have another question here. Does the third party sending in our education transcripts need to add anything specific to their email to ensure it gets added to the right application? So this will depend if, for example, you completed school with a different name in the past, it would be a good idea to include either your contact ID or some kind of comment saying what your name is on your application. That way we can find your account and your application without it getting lost. Um, Other than that, that's not often required, but it can be helpful.
All right. So I have a question is what is the purpose of transcripts of high school education was completed over 38 years ago or was enrolled in college as an adult continuing education? So if I understand correctly, the question, just saying that it is a requirement of the education standard. So you have to ensure you have the necessary skills to succeed in your education, you must provide proof of graduation from Canadian high school or equivalent. So that Canadian adult education credential is another option that you could have as well.
Oh, right. I have another question here. If I want to get licensed in mortgage and real estate, do I require two eligibility applications? No, you do not. You only need to be approved for eligibility once. Afterwards, you are approved to enroll in any courses. So if you are approved and you decide to change your mind as to which industry you would like to take courses in, that is totally allowed. And you would just need to let the school know which courses you would like to enroll in. If you happen to run into issues, technical issues with enrolling, just give us a call and we'll sort it out for you. But otherwise, you do not need to apply for eligibility twice if you would like to be licensed in two different industries.
All right. Another question is, in order to avoid the prescriptive period within which to take the exam, what should an applicant do for a pre-licensing exam when the IQAS has been delayed to submit the assessment documents to RECA? So you would not be able to do the pre-licensing education until you've actually met the eligibility requirements. So one of those would be the education and proof of English proficiency standards, which could be met by that IQAS document. So you wouldn't be held up because you haven't done your eligibility yet. So hope that helps. All right. So we currently have no other questions. So just wait another moment in case there are a few more questions. Otherwise, we will wrap it up. All right. So since there's no more questions, we will just wrap up for this afternoon. So please know if you need any further clarification or if you think of another question later on, please feel free to reach out, call us or email us. Otherwise, thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today and have a great rest of your afternoon. Thanks.